Thank you. What am I doing wrong? Okay. Yes, I'm here because she's in Sri Lanka. I want to start my presentation by first of all thanking the Life Saving Foundation, initially the Irish Life Saving Foundation, for their support, because without that this project would not have happened. And I'd just take 2 seconds to tell you that about 6 years ago, Chris and I decided she'd done enough, and we're on holiday in America, bemoaning the fact that we just didn't have the resources to do it, and a little email popped into the inbox and said, "We are a small charity in Ireland, and we've noticed what you do in Sri Lanka. We'd like to help. Would €250 be of any use to you?" And from that moment on, I'm afraid the project sort of was revived, and it's got more difficult and more challenging ever since. You will notice there's a picture of Christina up there. That's just to remind me constantly that whatever I say, she's watching, because it's being recorded. And the other little bit is that pink little thing on the right-hand side. I can't hand the medal out to show you that she was awarded by the Queen earlier in the year. But as the gold medal recipients here will understand, that when somebody acknowledges what you've done and gives you a medal, it then motivates you to go on. So I'm afraid instead of retiring, the challenge is getting more challenging. Okay, our challenge is that we are slightly iconoclastic in that we have stepped back a generation, and we're not teaching children, we're teaching adults. And that in itself is challenging. And the scenario for that is actually on this slide. Because if you look very carefully on the left-hand side, yes, it is the left-hand side. If you look on the left-hand side, you will see there's a group of people in the far distance, well into the water. Those are the men and their sons. If you look in the foreground, of course, you see the women and the children skipping about. And that really is the sort of the division of the sexes in the aquatic scenario in Sri Lanka. Now, it is a nation of non-swimmers apart from the wealthy and the adventurous. A large number of people who think they can swim are self-taught, or they've been taught in the scenario that you see in the far distance there in waist-deep water. So one of the factors about learning to swim in that is, of course, that whenever you need to breathe, you can always stand up. And that is a major factor in that. So what I want to do is just show you a little video clip of somebody who has told us that she can swim. Okay, and here we go. Now, this is a young girl. She's about 15 years old. She actually looks like a 10-year-old in Europe. Okay, and that's it. About 5 meters, and then she absolutely has to stand up, and she's completely blown, and she even turns away in embarrassment because she hasn't completed the length of the pool. Now that is a girl. The boys are virtually the same, very splashy swimming, and when they need to breathe, after they've exhausted the oxygen in their bodies, they need to stand up. They can't float, and they then grow up into adults with this imprinted in their minds that they can swim and they're swimmers. And that is the difficulty that we face. So these poor swimmers, underperforming child swimmers, become overconfident adults. Even though they might not have swum for 10 years, they think they still can swim. I just want to go on to the next slide now, and that is to show you that we actually teach in a different way. We teach people to float first. And one of the advantages of that, this is a demonstration of how to enter a pool. The person is going to swim off, and that's the little bit that I want you to watch. Now that is how Christina teaches someone who cannot swim to swim. They know no other way, no other stroke initially, other than to swim in that way. Streamlined, no splashing, very effective, and able to breathe all the time, and able to float all the time. Now if we take that overconfidence and translate that into hot weather, we know that the beach is irresistible. I'm going to just show you the beach of the most recent drownings in the UK, which received great publicity. And this is the Camber Beach in Sussex. It's not lifeguarded. It's not lifeguarded because the local authority didn't want to pay for it. Sorry, I just jumped that by accident. And you can see it's really it's a beach that needs a lifeguarding situation, but it's very similar to the Sri Lankan beach in that there's lots of waist-deep water. And the circumstances of this drowning are that 5 young men, they were actually Asian men, from London, came down to the seaside because the weather was fantastic, and they went into the water and got into difficulty. Their friends went to help them. They got into difficulty too, and the net result was that all 5 of them were drowned. They didn't even know at the time when they pulled the first 3 out that there were another 2. And the last 2 weren't discovered until the evening by a couple of girls strolling on the beach. And there were some rocks which they thought were rocks on the sand, and they were actually bodies. So quite a shocking situation. So the reason for that, obviously, is well known to all of those who sort of work the beaches, as it were. Oh dear, we jumped again. I'm sorry about that. And that is that you have shallow water over sandbanks, and they hide deep troughs which are invisible when the water is waist deep. And as you walk out, you see there are other people standing in waist-deep water over there, and you advance towards it, and down you go. And of course, if the tide is going out, you have the famous rip current. In this case, the rip current is from left to right or right to left, and you have a difficult situation. So those people drowned because in their earlier years, they could do splashy swimming, and they thought they were swimmers. And they were then over-challenged by deep water. I'm going to show you now another situational thing which reflects on what we're doing. We now move to Sri Lanka, and there are large parts of it where it's very flat and it's very dry, and it's ideal to have a large water storage area. In the colonial empire, they're called tanks. And basically, it's caused by damming up a watercourse. Because the land is fairly flat, the dam wall is not very high, but it's very long. And what you're looking at here, the black line running from left to right, is actually the wall of the dam, and the water is flowing over it. It's the overflow. And they're standing in shallow water in the overflow. A group of young Sri Lankan boys. And hurry, hurry means okay, okay. That's a great place for a lark around. Okay. It's awful, isn't it? We're watching an actual drowning there. That was popped up on YouTube in Sri Lanka. The message from that is there you have boys, they think they can swim, and they go into a situation that they don't know about. They're unsupervised, and so it's those reasons why we don't think we should teach children first until there's a structure of supervision and safety for them to swim in. So, by accident or design, we changed the way we do things. So Christina trains teachers first. That's the first action. The problem in a country where there's no indigenous swimming, or very little of it, is that you actually have to teach the person you want as a teacher how to swim in the first place. And so that is a greater challenge. But that's not how we initially arrived in Sri Lanka. It's taken us sort of a number of years to develop that. So I want to take you back now to the tsunami, which happened in 2004, and Christina saw that on television and said, I must go, and I thought she said she was going to the supermarket. It wasn't. She was going to the other side of the world and left me with the children. The children all said, go, Mummy, go, Mummy. Daddy's been everywhere, it's your turn. So off she went. When she got there, there was nobody to treat, because her profession is that she was a nurse, and there was nobody. The public health in Sri Lanka is very, very good, and the nature of tsunamis is that you either survive or you don't. There are very few sort of casualties in the in-between state. So what she found was the refugees living in tented misery, and so she reverted to the other thing that she does, which is teach swimming. And so she started to take people out of the tented camp, and the reason for that was that in addition to living in miserable conditions, there are two sort of factors you get when you get a massive disaster, and that's disaster tourists, people who just come along to have a look and gawp and see what it looks like. And the other thing is that sort of below the surface of that, you get male predators to prey on women and children and offer their protection. And this is a characteristic of disaster management which has come to the fore, particularly prevalent in Sri Lanka and also in Haiti. So she started to take people off swimming and rented a hotel swimming pool. Thank you. She rented a hotel swimming pool. A hotel put profit before philanthropy, so we actually had to rent it. The output is limited to one teacher. The mothers wouldn't be parted from the children. And that's when she discovered that the mothers couldn't swim. So if you add that to the predators, there's a need for her to have helpers, to have privacy in her own swimming surroundings, and that led to the next stage, was to run the swimming from her own pool. That required persuading husbands, because it's a male-dominated society, have to persuade the fathers. The perceived life progression for a Sri Lankan girl is that she goes to school, gets educated, family find a husband for her, she has babies, and then spends the rest of her life looking after them and her husband. So the men dominate the thing. So what I want to do now is, having got these people trained as swimming teachers, they actually undergo a large cultural change. They become independent, capable of earning their own money, and so it advances the women economically and socially, as well as bringing water safety benefit. What is required in this kind of scenario is that we need an aquatic competency standard that relates to the environment that they're in, that we need a community teacher qualification which reflects the country and not an advanced economy, that it's suitable for low resources areas, and that it's based, most importantly, right from the beginning, on survival. What is so difficult about learning to float? I don't know. It only took me 47 years to discover what the secret was. My wife revealed it to me. There have been some good work done on it. These are the two sort of current things. The best one is the Australian one. And after 60 lessons, you're able to float for 180 seconds. This is the RNLI one. The lifeboaters are not really in the business of teaching swimming, I don't think. They're only asking for a 30-second float. A 30-second float is not enough. Out in the field, one of the reasons that Christina had to dash out there is that our fabric pool had collapsed. The metal framework had simply rusted away. And so we were in Germany, and we said, well, it's going to take a month to get it from China. About 5 days later, we got this photograph on the right, and they had fixed it themselves. So I consider that that is the start of what we're looking for, which is self-sufficiency. And so I want you to meet Vanilla. She's our new in-country manager with her swimming family, and she actually lives on the swimming pool premises that we are using. And I think that within the next 12 months that she will be completely confident to run the whole project on her own, just with a little bit of occasional visiting, much in the same way as Rob over there pops over to Tanzania to see how she gets on. Looking ahead into the field of research, we have someone that I would consider recommending for some kind of drowning research project, which we can get there. This is young Indu. She was 26 when she learned to swim, and within 6 months she became a swimming teacher. She speaks fantastic English, and she's just completed a second degree in law, having won a state scholarship in the face of 20,000 competitors for it. And finally, I just want to sort of finish off. We have these challenges. I said that Christina is a little bit like an enthusiastic dog when the bone is over there. I'd just like to show you where her next challenge is heading. And I would like to ask you to consider how you can possibly help her achieve that. And it ties in with what Kevin Moran and other people want to do, and that is to research how we can advance swimming. We need to look at what is being taught right at the beginning to make swimming survivable from the very start. We have a wonderful collection of 80,000 very miserable people out in the desert where there is no tree, no swimming pool, nowhere to go. It's hot, dry, and dusty. And if we were to put one of these portable swimming pools in there, I believe that that would be self-sufficient within 12 months, and they would be teaching themselves to swim. Not only would they be doing that, but also we would be doing a great service, because we are showing them that we care about people drowning. We believe that being safe in water is a life skill, and that's something that everybody is entitled to have, and that challenge in Zatari is where we want to go. I want to finish off by saying on we've taken John's motto of don't drown, float and breathe, and we've turned it into a little swimming pool passport. If you want to swim in the sea, then you need a visa, and we make it quite clear that the skill levels are different. So to swim in a swimming pool, you need to be able to float for 10 minutes, and swim 100 meters around the pool. Then mum and dad can read their novel right through from the front to the back. When you want to go into the sea, the visa requires you to swim 400 meters. And it's not difficult, because when you get tired, you just roll over onto your back and float. And that's the key thing to survival. So there it is. Thank you very much indeed.